brought to you by the Texas REIAs. The Texas REIAs is the largest network of real estate investor associations and real estate investors in the great state of Texas. Over 150,000 members, participants, and attendees going back to 2003. So this is not some fly-by-night operation. This is the Texas REIAs, the biggest one in Texas. And why do you care? And why does that even matter? Well, maybe you could care because, you know, real estate is local. Laws are local. Contracts are local. Contractors are local. Buyers, sellers, houses, vendors, lenders, everything about real estate is local. There's 30,000 YouTube videos that talk about how to invest in real estate. They talk about how to do it anywhere. Well, how to do it anywhere is how to do it at 30,000 feet. But real estate is not bought and sold at 30,000 feet. Real estate is bought and sold at 0 feet. So if you want to know what laws apply here and which contracts to use here and which contractors to hire here, where do you get all that? You get that at your local real estate investor association. They say if they have the slightest interest in real estate, the first thing to do is to go join your local real estate investor association because we are Texans teaching Texans how to invest in Texas. So we have lots of resources available for you guys. We do training. We have all kinds of training, market updates. We're going to give you a little market update. I'm going to share the latest data because we update that all the time. You need to know what's going on in the market, what the opportunities are, to be a student in the market. We have 25,000 buyers in our buyers list. So if you're looking for buyers, yeah, we got lots of them. We also have a private investor network. So big misnomer. A lot of people are like, oh, you need money to invest in real estate. Well, not exactly. You know, here's the thing. Whether you have money or not, it kind of doesn't matter much because you don't have enough anyway. What does that mean? Let's say you have $500,000 sitting in your checking account. Great, good for you. Go buy a house. Okay, now you're done. Yep, all your money's in the house. Can't buy another house. You're done. No, you got to be able to buy any property at any time at any price because the deal that could completely change your life could just show up tomorrow. It probably will, right? So you got to be comfortable using other people's money. Whether you have money or not, you still have to learn how to use other people's money. And what's interesting to me is I teach people how to invest in real estate, and some people have money and some people don't have money. And you would think the people that have money would have the big advantage, right? They have money, right? Versus the people that don't have money. But here's what I've seen. The people that have money, yeah, sometimes they get their first deal a little faster. So they get the deal and they buy it with their money, but then they hit a wall, right? And they have no idea how to do the second deal because all their money is tied up in the first deal. Now, the people that get into this without money, they've got to learn right from the get-go to learn how to use other people's money. Right? And they do that. And they get the first deal, and then immediately they get the second deal, the third deal, the fourth deal. Because the only way you're going to scale this thing is using other people's money. So good news, we have thousands of private investors, private money and hard money lenders that support this community. This is money you can get in as little as a day, sometimes in as little as an hour. Okay, that's the kind of money we use for real estate flipping and investing. Now, it's more expensive than bank money, right? Private money, hard money might be 10 to 15% interest. And I do understand, okay, if you're going to get a mortgage on your home, you wouldn't want to get a 10 or 15% interest mortgage. But for short term, who cares? Like if you borrow $100,000 for 1 year at 15%, what is that going to cost you? 15 grand. But you're probably not even going to use it for a year. You're going to use it for 6 months. What is it going to cost you? $7,500. Well, if that deal makes you $40,000, okay, would you spend $7,500 to make $40,000? Of course, it makes sense, right? So yes, we use hard money, private money, and we also do it with no money. And I'm going to show you a whole bunch, about 9 different ways you can do it even with no money at all. We have training for both residential and for commercial, and we have 257 vendors. These are property managers and asset managers and title companies and attorneys, CPAs, contractors, every imaginable resource. You know, why do we have all that? Well, you know, they actually pay for this. In fact, they're paying for the chairs you're sitting in. They probably paid for the ad you clicked on to get here. And the reason they do that is because they know that we churn out real estate investors like crazy, and you're going to need help. You're going to need title companies and attorneys and contractors, and who are you going to hire? Probably the guy that the guy next to you recommends to you. That's just how this business works. So we're live, hello live, and we're online. If you're on Avio, Zoom, or GoToWebinar, you are live. If you are on social media, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, or Twitch, you may or may not be live. But if you want to come to any of our many live events, we do multiple events every week, come join us, flipping.com/events. Okay, so I'm Phil Grove. I am one of the founders of the Texas REIAs. I've been a real estate investor since 2003, so you're looking at a guy that's been investing for, 23 years, long time. Negotiated over 1,200 deals, so I flipped a lot of houses. Own $30 million in rental properties. So I'm gonna give you some advice from a guy that's been doing this for 23 years. I wish I owned more rental properties. There's some advice. But let's talk about the market. What do you guys think about the market? I wanna get a little interaction going here with the crowd. What do you think of the market right now? You think it's kind of cheap or kind of expensive? And it's just your opinion. So I'd like to get everybody's opinion, and their opinions cannot be wrong. I'm just looking for opinions. So what do you think of the market right now? Who thinks houses are really cheap right now? Really cheap right now? Really cheap? Who thinks houses are expensive right now? Expensive right now? Oh wow, we got a lot of expensives. We don't have any cheaps. We're running out of options here, so okay. Mostly the consensus was expensive. Okay, well, I'll share my opinion. This is just my opinion. I think houses are dirt freaking cheap. I was looking at the prices in the MLS the other day. I almost fell off my chair. Like, oh my God, are they just giving these things away? I can't believe it. I was astounded. But you know what? Don't listen to me. We just met. You don't know me much yet. You will, but you know, here's what I want you to do. Don't listen to me. Ask somebody that you know. In fact, ask somebody that you trust. In fact, I want you to ask the person that you know and that you trust more than anybody in the whole wide world. I know you will listen to them. Okay, I want you to ask their opinion because they're going to give you some really good advice. So who should you ask? I want you to ask future you, 20 years from now, what do you think of home prices back in Austin, Texas in 2026? And future you is going to say, oh my God, do you realize you could have bought houses in Austin, Texas for less than $3 million a piece? You should have bought them all. Yeah. So don't feel bad, but for the last 23 years, in fact, for 23 out of the last 23 years, we've been asking people at the REIA, what do you think of home prices? And for 23 of the last 23 years, everybody in the audience says they're expensive because they're always comparing it to what? To, I don't know, the good old days. Well, the good old days are gone, but the good old days are coming again, and I'll tell you about that in a minute. But let me tell you my experience. I started buying rental properties 23 years ago. And just like today, the market was crazy expensive. But it was what it was, and I was getting into the real estate thing back then. So I bought a bunch of houses downtown Austin for crazy, ridiculous prices. I think I paid $80,000 for one of those houses. I know, crazy. It's like downtown, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, nutso. But you know, it's what it was, and it was just crazy, and I was a little crazy, so I was just buying these crazy houses. I think I paid $95,000 for one of those houses. I think, believe it or not, I paid $110,000 for a house in Crestview, right? I'm in Midtown. I mean, it's insane. Now, today I'm reselling these houses for $750,000, $825,000, $1.2 million. Yeah. So here's the thing about rental properties. I don't know with absolute certainty if these houses will go up a little bit or down a little bit in the next year. And to be honest with you, I don't really care. But I do know with absolute certainty that 20 years from now, whatever you buy at whatever price you pay, it will be worth no less than 3 times what you paid for it. Because there's never been a 20-year period where properties have not at least tripled in value. So if I could only go back, you always hear that saying, right? Now you're listening to somebody who did it for 23 years. If I could only go back, I would have bought them all. I would have bought more rental properties. Because a lot of my wealth today came from decisions I made 23 years ago, buying all those stupid, crazy, overpriced houses, right? And I just hand the keys to the property manager and I say, don't call me. Okay, that's how you handle rental properties. Just don't call me. Right? I'll call you, you don't call me, right? That's how we handle rental properties. To be honest with you, they don't make a whole lot of money. A little bit of money, you know, they make a little bit of money. They really don't make it. If you think like cash flow, there's not a lot of cash flow. You make a little money, then you got an air conditioner, you got $10,000 and lose a little money, and then you make a little money, you lose, you know, but here's what they do. they double in value, and then they double again, and then they double again, while the tenants pay off the mortgages. So now I own $30 million worth of houses, and I only owe 5 on all the mortgages, because what happened? They double, and the tenants paid off the mortgages. And that's pretty cool. So here's the thing, right? When's the best time to plant a tree? 20 years ago. Yeah, 20 years ago. When's the second best time to plant a tree? That would be now. And so the point is, plant well, right? Plant now. One thing I want you to do, we're going to talk about 2 things, right? Wealth, income. Okay, wealth, buy rental properties. I'm even going to show you how you can do it with no money and no credit. So you've got no excuses, okay? And buy as many as you can and just hand the key to the property manager and go on with your life. Now, we're also going to talk about making money, right? You know, because I do a lot of flips of houses, and you know, I can't keep them all. I got to make some money too. So we love to do that. And I've also taught a lot of people, over 150,000 here in Texas. I teach Texans how to invest in Texas. I think I hold a record. I don't know how to prove it. I mean, there's people that teach real estate. I teach Texans. So, like, I don't know if anybody's taught 150,000 Texans. I mean, maybe, maybe not. I'm not sure. These are some of the deals that made me money. Don't have time to go through them all, but I do about a real estate transaction a week in some shape, form, variety, or another. What that does is it creates money in big chunks. Now that sounds good, right? Money in big chunks. I'm not here to sound good. I'm here to teach you. How does this work? The way this business works is as follows. We do things to get people with problems to call us. What kind of problems? They have a house they don't want, a mortgage they can't afford. Problems to entrepreneurs are what? Opportunities. Big problems are what? Big opportunities. So like if you guys are thinking like, I don't want any problems, you're thinking, I don't want to be an entrepreneur. Because I don't care what kind of entrepreneur you want to be. One thing all entrepreneurs have in common is entrepreneurs are just problem solvers. That's all they do. You know, you want to make a boatload of money? Go find a problem a bunch of people have and solve it. And people will pay you a lot to solve their problems. So we're real estate entrepreneurs, and we solve real estate problems, all kinds of problems. So let me give you some examples. I found somebody facing foreclosure, big problem. I gave them an alternative, something called a short sale, allowed them to sell the house without having to bring money to the table, without destroying their life and their credit. And I made $16,000 helping somebody solve their problem. REO stands for real estate owned, bank-owned properties. Banks do not want to own real estate. They're not in that business. So I took it off the bank's hands, solving the bank's problems, flipped it, made $36,000. A guy had a legal problem, had to sell a house by Friday by court order. A realtor can't sell your house by Friday. I actually can. Wholesaled it, made $5,000. Got a property subject to, no money, no credit, flipped it, $68,000. $5,600 for a small assignment deal, $6,000 for a mortgage assignment, $10,000 for a wholesale, $2,800 for a small referral, $12,400 for a large referral. The way this business works is as follows. We do things to find people with problems, and then here's the really cool part. For every problem that exists, there is no exception. For every problem that exists, we have one or more strategies that helps people, this is about helping people, solves their problem, their need, and gets us paid. Sometimes we get singles, sometimes we get doubles, sometimes we get home runs. Sometimes I work on a lead, a deal, an opportunity, problem, for 6 months, and after 6 months I make $5,000. I'm like, oh man, wish I could have made more money working at Walmart, right? Than, you know, $5,000 after 6 months, right? Thank goodness I'm not working just on one lead at a time. Sometimes my phone rings and that phone call makes me $55,000 in 45 minutes. And I'm like, oh man, I wish every time my phone rang I made $55,000 in for 45 minutes. But that's not how it works either. That's maybe 1 in 100 phone calls. But the question to ask is this: how often do you get 100 phone calls? Because you can control that. It depends on how many houses you look at. Do you look at 100 houses a week? Do you look at 100 houses a month? Do you look at 100 houses a year? That's up to you, because you can control that. And it's just how much marketing that you do. So there's 2 essential skills we're going to learn to be real estate investors. We're going to teach you these skills right now. The first and foremost skill is marketing. Marketing is generating the lead, finding the deal. A lead is what? Just the name and number, somebody that might want to sell real estate. So we need to spend 85% of our time and effort on that, right? Generating the lead, finding the deal. Second skill we have to learn is strategy, doing the deal, solving the problem. We buy houses, we help people sell houses, get rid of houses and mortgages they don't want, can't afford. We do that in a variety of different ways. It solves a variety of different problems. So these are the two skills we're going to learn. Okay, marketing and strategy, finding deals, doing deals, finding problems, solving problems. We use 65 different ways to find off-market, because that's what we buy, off-market wholesale properties. You don't have to do 65. You have to do 3, maybe 4, maximum of 5. But there's a lot of them to choose from. Some take time, some take money. You're going to choose the ones that are right for you. We use a dozen different strategies to help people solve their problems. Now, good news, over half of these marketing methods are completely free. And in fact, 9 of the 12 investing strategies are actually no money and no risk strategies. And when you learn how to buy houses with no money and no credit and no risk, how many houses can you buy? All of them. How many would you like to buy? All of them. So when I throw out a question, I'm just going to give you a little tip. If you shout back all of them, you're probably going to get the answer right. So just so you know. Okay, so marketing and strategy, finding deals, doing deals, finding problems, solving problems. Let's get started by talking about how to find the deals, marketing. Actually, first I'm going to tell you a quick story. This was my first deal. This was the very first house I flipped, and it was literally about a rock throw from where we are right now. It was in North Austin, and flipped this house on December 15, 2003. Oh, crazy price, you know, should have kept that one. Well, whatever. Anyway, but I'll tell you a story. On December 14th, 2003, the day before I did this deal, I was scared to death. I was actually being coached and mentored by the 2 guys that ran the Real Estate Investor Association back then. I called them both on the phone. I'm scared. I don't want to lose any money. Are you sure this is going to work? Yeah, it took 2 seasoned, experienced real estate executive experts to, you know, pulling me kicking and screaming over the starting blocks to get me to do the first deal. So if you're scared, I get it, I can relate, and I can help. But I had one other thing motivating me at that time in my life to take action. I was in a job I no longer loved, and I was in a career I no longer loved. And I'm going to tell you guys, if you're spending time doing something you don't love doing, you need to do something different with your life plan. And that's where I was. I needed a different life. And I got to tell you, you get one life, and it just races by. My wife and I recently had a baby boy. Yes, thank you. And and then you know, just a couple months ago, I bought him his first car. Yeah, turned 16. And it's like, what happened? Like, what happened? I remember the baby. I remember that. I remember feeding him a few times. I'm sure that had something to do with it. And now he's taller than me and he's driving a car. The world is a little less safe right now, just so you all know, you know, watch yourself out on the road. We'll survive. But that's how life is. It's just a blur. Like the last 16 years of my life, like just a blur. And it's like, that's how life is. And if you're not on a trajectory to getting the life you want, you need to change the trajectory. And, you know, we have this little YouTube channel. And we interview people in this network, typically multimillionaire real estate investors right here in Texas. And we always ask the same question. We always get the same answer. Ask any multimillionaire real estate investor on this planet Earth this question, you will get the same answer. What is your biggest regret? And they all say the same thing. I wish I started when? Sooner. It's always sooner. Life sucks you up. And then you just like, you know, let it get away from you. And it's funny, my dad asked me recently, he's like, you teach all these people this real estate, like who are all these people? I'm like, well, it's mostly middle-aged guys that hate their boss or just got fired, right? Which is kind of everybody at some point in their life. At some point in their life, everybody wakes up and says, I'm not on a trajectory that I want to be on. I want to make more money. I want to have a better future, you know, and then they look at all the different things they can do, and then they discover real estate, or they hear about real estate. And it turns out like almost 80% of multimillionaires got their all or in part from investing in real estate. So in other words, it's really hard to become a multimillionaire not investing in real estate. So then they start checking out real estate. And they end up at one of our meetings, right? So that's kind of how everybody at some point in their life kind of ends up in this thing of real estate. So let me tell you just a little bit more about that very first deal. You see, your first deal is your most important deal. It's a life-changing experience. It's kind of like your first kiss, life-changing experience. Everybody remembers their first kiss. Everybody remembers their first deal. I'll tell you about mine. It took me 6 months to find my first deal. I was actually an unusually slow starter. Got it under contract with a contract I got right here at the REIA. Bought it using OPM, other people's money, private money lender here at the REIA, gave me the money, loaned me the money. Got a contractor here at the REIA to fix it, got a realtor here at the REIA to sell it, got an attorney and title company right here at the REIA to close it, and I went to that very first closing and picked up that very first check, $15,384.26. And you know, when they handed me that check, it was like you unscrewed the cap, popped out the old brain, and popped in the new brain. Because right up until that moment, I was a real estate investor based on theory. And I wasn't even sure I believed the theory. I don't know about this, not sure about this, don't know about that. But the second they handed me that check, like a switch flipping, I became a real estate investor based on experience. I didn't know anything different, except I knew it actually worked. And what I realized when they handed me that check is if I did this and this and this again, I'd get another check. Worked the first time. And if I did it again, I get another check, and again, I get another check. But the really big deal that I realized when they handed me that check, at that moment, I realized that I would never, ever, 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 for the rest of my life, ever have to work for somebody else, ever, 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 ever again. And I have not worked for anybody, even for 1 second, since they handed me that check. My resume is in some form of DOS that even the most high-tech IT guy in this room could not resurrect if your life depended on it. And if you're wondering, what is this DOS? Ask somebody with gray hair and they'll explain it to you. Yeah. So I told you I was going to tell you what I did right. I'm also going to tell you what I did wrong, because I did make all the typical rookie mistakes. For example, on that first deal, I spent all that time finding the deal, found the deal. As soon as I found the deal, I kind of put my marketing on hold. I picked up some hammers, I managed some contractors, only to wake up the next day and realize I had absolutely nothing to do. Well, actually, except start the whole business all over again. And this gets me to my very first takeaway. And this is probably the biggest one I'm going to give you. And here it is. The business of being a real estate investor is the business of finding deals. It's all about finding deals. Why? Because you make the money on the buy. What does that mean? As soon as you find a property and get it under contract, you know what? Whatever money was going to be made or not made, done, right there. Yeah, you get the money at the end on the sell, but you make the money on the buy. And once you realize that you make the money on the buy, you always need to spend 85% of your time and money on that, looking for the next deal. Because the next deal, I'm going to tell you, is always more important than the deal you have now. The rookies all screw this up. It takes the rookies 2 years to learn this lesson. Because here's what all the rookies do. They finally look at enough deals, they do enough marketing, they find a deal, they do a deal, great, they make the money, great. But while they're working on that deal, they're not looking for the next deal. So they reset. And then they get their marketing going, they start looking at deals, they look at enough deals, they find a deal, they do a deal, they make money, great. But while they're working on that deal, they're not looking for the next deal. So they reset. And their income goes up and down and up and down with big gaps in between. You need your income to go up, 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 up. And the only way to do that is you have to keep the pipeline filled with deals. You never stop marketing. And the only way to do that is to always remember your next deal is always, always more important than the deal you have now. And hint, the deals you're looking for are not in the MLS. The MLS is the multiple listing service. It is the retail market for real estate. It is where realtors sell real estate. It's where all the people in the world compete with each other to see who will pay the most. And I hate to say it, but when you're competing against all the people in the world, some of those people are stupid. And we have a rule. You don't want to compete against stupid. Well, you don't want to win competing against stupid. Now, don't get me wrong, folks. I love the MLS. I adore the MLS. Why do I love and adore the MLS? Because after I buy off-market wholesale real estate, where do I want to go to resell it? The MLS. It's been proven. Any property posted for sale in the MLS will sell for the most it could possibly sell for. That's proven. That's just never where you're going to find heavily discounted wholesale real estate. The very, very best deal in the entire MLS would rarely be a deal a real estate investor would even take a second look at. So that's the lesson, finding deals. And then once I realized this whole shooting match is really just about finding deals, well then I started to systematize and study the process of finding deals. And over time, I developed 65 different methods for finding deals. Actually, that's not really accurate to say I developed 65. What would probably be more accurate is to say I found 65 different things that work. And I started to do some of those things. But you know what? I really need to teach you another lesson right now, and really important lesson. But for me to teach you this next lesson, first I need to unteach you all something. I got to unteach you something. When you guys were in elementary school, if you looked over the paper next to you and you copied down the answers, that was called what? Cheating. Cheating. And you're all told that cheating is what? Bad, wrong. Okay, we're not a bunch of little kids. We're no longer in elementary school. Going forward, I need you all to unlearn that. Okay, because in business, guess what? Cheating is actually the shortcut. Okay, what am I saying up here? What I'm trying to say is this. Guys, there's nothing you're trying to do. I'm pretty certain there's nothing you're trying to figure out that I and other people haven't already done and figured out. You know, everything about this business has been completely figured out. We know what's in the soil. We know the chemical composition of the soil. Okay, we know the zoning. We know the guys who write the zoning. We know the laws. We've helped write some of the laws. We know the appreciation rate down to the street address across all the streets, across all the cities, across the state of Texas. We know the exact letters to send to the exact marketing list. We know the exact words to say. We know the exact offers to make. We know exactly what objections we're going to get. We know exactly how to overcome every objection. We even know on average how many contracts that we're going to get signed for every 20,000 postcards that we mail out. Everything, and I mean everything about this business is completely understood. So once I realized everything I was trying to do and everything I was trying to figure out, other people had done and figured out, I stopped trying to figure everything out and I just started to, here's this word, copy, right? Copy tested, proven ways to do this. Now, some of these methods you're going to see take time, and some of these methods take money. When you get started, you probably have more time and less money. Once you get going, you have more money and less time. I will be honest with you, I don't spend any time anymore on marketing. I outsource 100%. But when you're getting started, you're going to insource more. Okay, so what are all these ways to find off-market wholesale deals? Well, one place you can look is you can use marketing lists. I said you're not going to find your deal in the MLS, that's the retail market. So where do you get off-market? Well, there's marketing lists. What do you do with a marketing list? You can do marketing. You can call them, you can text them, you can email them, you can drop a voicemail in their voicemail box, you can knock on their door, you can send them a letter, you can send them a postcard. You do some combination of those things, which is called a combination plan. Or you can do what I do, because I really don't have time for all that, and I use an AI-powered chatbot to call, text, and talk to people while I'm sleeping and schedule appointments with people that want an offer, right? Or any combination of that stuff. So what are some of the popular marketing lists? Well, let's go through some. You can get a list of people that didn't pay their property taxes, people that are missing mortgage payments and scheduled for foreclosure. You can get a list of people that haven't yet been scheduled for foreclosure, but they're about to be scheduled for foreclosure. You can get a divorce list. Two people were combining their income to pay a mortgage. Now one of them's gone. Well, the one that's left is probably having trouble paying the mortgage by themselves. You can get a list of people that are going to inherit a house from somebody that died with a will. You can get a list of people that are going to inherit a house from somebody that died without a will. Did you know 2 out of 3 people don't have a will? Light bulb. You can get an AI-generated list. Artificial intelligence, big data. Do you know they know everything about you? Who's they? They. Facebook has a dossier on every one of you. They have 273 pieces of information on every single one of you. They know everything about you. They know your height, your weight. They know your cholesterol score, how much money you make, your credit score. They know all of your personal preferences and interests. How do they know all that? Because every time you friend somebody, every time you like something, you know, when you're online, you know, when you're watching a video, they actually watch you watch the video. They count how many seconds you're watching. They calculate whether the sound was on or off. And they use AI itself to reverse engineer what you were watching in the video and how attentive you were. And they know everything about you. And then what do they do with that? They build a psychodemographic profile of you. And then they dice it up and they slice it up and they sell it to advertisers who advertise to you. Okay, so you can get, for example, a list of people that are predicted by algorithms to be likely motivated sellers. You can get a list of people that got dismissed from bankruptcy, certainly a lot of financial distress there. You can get a non-owner occupied list. There's a list of people who own a house where they don't live at the address of the house they own. Technically, that's a landlord. And a lot of them are accidental landlords. They couldn't sell the house, so they rented it out. Or they let an ex-spouse or family member or friend or neighbor stay in a house, or they inherit a house with a tenant. They didn't really plan on being a landlord. They don't really know how to be a landlord, and very often they eventually become motivated sellers. You get a list of people who rent to people on public assistance. You can get a code enforcement list. Did you know that the city is already driving all over town, issuing citations for abandoned houses, hoarder houses, deferred maintenance houses? Did you know that you can get a list of every problem property in the city? You can even get an expired listing list. What's that? That's a list of people that hired a realtor, tried for a long time to sell their house, and it didn't sell. What do we know about these people? We know 100% of these people would like to sell their house, probably now more than ever. But they probably need solutions that realtors don't offer. Well, hello, that's exactly what investors do offer. If you send letters and postcards to these lists of people, right, that have problems, some of them will call you back. It is a statistical fact. If you make them an offer that solves their problem, and by the way, we have an offer for every problem that exists, and some of them will say yes, it is a statistical fact. And the whole thing is a numbers game, and in a few minutes, I'm even going to give you the numbers. So where do you get these lists? Well, you get the list from list brokers. You want a list? One of our vendors is the top list broker in Texas, ProList. Want to get a half-price list? Click on that little QR code, and that's where you get lists of off-market wholesale properties. And by the way, as I'm going through the presentation, if you see something you like, just take a quick snapshot of it. Vendors sponsor these things. And these are all vetted vendors. If you click on it, it doesn't even ask you to fill out a form. It just basically sends a text message from your phone to the system, and then the system will text you back later with some resources, like here's this resource for this or this resource for that. So yeah, you want motivated seller lists, that's where you get them. Okay, so what are the other marketing methods? Well, let's talk. You can get a list, you got a website, you get leads on the internet. Bandit signs, little plastic signs, see them on the side of the road. We buy houses. Why do you see those signs? Because they do actually work. Online ads work, email autoresponders, magnetic signs, a little sign on the side of your car. You buy the sign once, you get leads for the rest of your life, just driving around. Door hangers, you don't want to pay postage. You know, for 10 cents a door, you can have a door hanger, door flyer put on every door in the neighborhood. Here's one that's pretty much free, driving for dollars. Sometimes I'm just driving around and I see a tarp on a roof. Okay, they might as well be waving a big red flag. Desperate motivated seller, please buy my house. I mean, think about this. Somebody's most valuable asset, a house, has a serious problem. Okay, that's a leak. And their solution was to do what? To go buy a $5 tarp at Home Depot? How come they didn't fix the roof? What do you think? Exactly, no money. Same guy not fixing the roofs, not paying his mortgage, not paying his taxes, not paying his insurance. Sooner or later, an investor is going to pick up that deal. Okay, additional marketing strategies. Letters of intent. What's a letter of intent? A letter of intent is an offer. And who should you send an offer to? And the answer is everybody. So I'm going to give you all your first homework assignment. Here it is. Tomorrow, I want each of you to send 300 people an offer on their home. I'm not kidding. Here's how investors think. Ready, fire, aim. You make the offer, and then you negotiate. You make the offer, and then you do your due diligence. You make the offer, and then you look for the money. You make the offer, and then, and only then, do you think about it. You make everybody an offer. Why not? This is the difference between the rookie and the pro. Here's the thing, guys. When you make somebody an offer here in Texas, did you know you get 4 different options? Just making the offer gives you 4 options. You might want to write them down. Option number 1, you can buy a house because they might say yes. If you make 300 offers, if you take 300 shots on goal, what do you think is going to happen? Something's going in, even if you suck. Okay, and with practice, what do you think is going to happen? You get better, exactly. More of them go in, even more of them go in. So option number 1, you buy a house. Option number 2, you can terminate the offer. After you make it, did you know the Texas state promulgated contract gives the buyer and only the buyer the unilateral right to just rip it up, walk away, no harm, no cost, no pain, no penalty, no risk. Option number 3, instead of canceling the contract, terminating the contract, you can renegotiate the offer. Did you know it's much, much, much easier to renegotiate than it is to negotiate? Especially when everybody who calls you back is saying they want to sell, i.e. they want to negotiate. Option number 4, you can actually sell your equitable interest, the contract itself, to somebody else that has money. Notice only one of these 4 options even required you to have any money to buy a house. Just make offers and give yourself options. Okay, the pros learn this quickly. Just make everybody offers. You have no risk, you have infinite rewards. Just make offers to everybody you see constantly. Why not? So why are there so many different marketing methods? FSBO, for sale by owner. Calling people trying to sell their own house. Why are they doing that? Maybe they're lazy, maybe they're crazy, maybe they need solutions realtors don't offer. Well, that's exactly what investors do offer. So why so many different marketing methods? Well, would you rather fish with a hook or would you rather fish with a net? The answer is you need to learn to fish with a net. And the reason is because this business at the end of the day is a numbers game, and now I'm going to teach you the numbers. I'm going to teach you something right now that it took me 2 years of hard work in the trenches to figure out. So I'm going to shave 2 years of your learning curve right now. By 2005, I was a real estate investor for 2 years. And I calculated in my first 2 years, I had looked at a deal every couple of days. So I looked at 400 deals every couple of days for the first couple of years. And then I did the math. And this is where it got interesting. As a rookie, I calculated that on average for every $100 worth of paid marketing, things like mailing out postcards, that I did, I got 1 qualified motivated seller lead. Then I calculated as a rookie, on average, for every 3 hours I spent on personal marketing, things like just driving for dollars, I got 1 qualified motivated seller lead. Then I calculated that on average for every 20 leads that I got at least 1 deal that made me at least $20,000 net profit. So let me do the math for you. It means every time I drove around for 60 hours, I got at least 20 leads, of which at least 1 would make me $20,000. Every time I mailed out $2,000 in direct mail, I got at least 20 leads, of which at least 1 would make me at least $20,000. So, spend $2,000, make 20. Okay? Spend $2,000, make 20. Spend $4,000, make 40. Spend $8,000, make 80. Spend $16,000, make 160. Spend $32,000. You don't have to spend it all at once, by the way. Make $320,000 net profit. Are you starting to like the numbers? It took me 2 years to figure that out. But after 2 years, I realized, holy cow, this whole thing is just a numbers game, and now I know the numbers. And to me, this was like a light bulb moment in my life, because I started to think about this business, my business, in a completely different way. I now see this whole business, my business, like it's just a little black box. And the way that little black box works, we're going to call that little black box a marketing machine. And the way that little black box works, every time I stick $100 worth of marketing in one end, eventually $1,000 worth of net profit pops out the other end. So now if you had a little black box, every time you shoved a $100 bill in one end, a $1,000 bill popped out the other end, how many dollars would you stick in the box? All of them. Remember, all of them, all of them, yeah. And I started spending money on marketing like a freaking drunken sailor. I started spending thousands of dollars a month on marketing, and then I started spending tens of thousands of dollars a month on marketing. And then I hired 2 full-time 6-figure guys that work for me to this day that spend 100% of their time spending my money on marketing. One just runs ads, the other does analytics, figures out what works, what doesn't work, doubles down on what works. It's not unusual today. I can spend as much as $100,000 a month on marketing. Because once you know it's a numbers game, and once you know the numbers, man, you just dial it in and dial it up. And I'll tell you something else. These numbers are 20 years old. What does that mean? They're a lot better today. The exact same effort that made me 20 grand 20 years ago, what does that make you today? 50. Why? Houses are 2.5 times more expensive than they were 20 years ago, right? So everything has gone up. including the amount of money you make on every deal that you do. And it's just a numbers game, and now you know the numbers.